Hi guys, this will be the first video in what will hopefully be a long series about every aspect of Dwarf Fortress. I'm gonna try to focus on certain topics per video to make it easy to learn certain parts of the game. The first chapter I want to cover is how to feed your dwarves. An important task as a fortress manager is keeping your dwarves fed. This can be done in multiple ways. You can either farm crops, you can hunt for food, you can gather plants, you can fish, you can butcher your animals, or you can breed your livestock. I will cover each topic separately since there's a lot to learn about feeding your dwarves. I'll start with what I like to call the uncontrollable ways, which are fishing, hunting and breeding. We'll start off with fishing. Fishing is the easiest way to get some extra food. All that you need to do is allow dwarves to fish in the labor screen. Once they are allowed to fish and there is a body of water nearby, they will automatically start fishing there. They are able to fish in brooks, ponds and rivers. Fish do need to be prepared before it can be eaten or processed further into meals. This can be done by the same dwarf at a fishery, which can be found under the farming menu. Certain fish will also give you scales or shells to decorate stuff with. If you want them to fish only in a particular area, you will need to create a fishing zone and change the preferences in the labor screen. This is located under Standing Orders and the Other tab. This could be useful if you don't want them to be fishing near an alligator-infested river. The fish you catch is also dependent on the type of water it was caught in, so this could be a murky pool, brooks, rivers, lakes or oceans. Fisher dwarves also like to complain about being caught in the rain, since they are outdoors a lot. You can solve this by cave fishing. Improving the fishing skill will decrease the time it takes to catch fish. Hunting, just like fishing, will happen automatically if some requirements are met. Hunting needs to be enabled in the labor screen for certain dwarves. The hunter needs a bow or crossbow, a quiver and some ammo. If you didn't bring any ammo when preparing, you should make some wooden bolts at the crafts dwarf shop. The last requirement is that there is wildlife on your map. Animals suitable to that biome will appear randomly on the edge of the map. Only one group of animals will appear at any given time. Once this group leaves the map, another group will appear. This can result in your hunter chasing some deer off the map and then running for his life from the elephants that just showed up. You can check if there's anything that can be hunted in the area by looking in the unit screen, by pressing U and going to the Others tab. Once all the requirements are met, hunters will start sneaking up on wildlife by themselves. Hunting is a bit more dangerous than fishing, but can also be more beneficial in multiple ways. Your dwarves get better at shooting their crossbow, which you will appreciate later on when he's defending your fort. The animals you hunt on land are a lot bigger than the fish you catch, so the reward that you get from butchering them is a lot bigger than from fishing. And the last benefit is that apart from the meat and bones you get, you also get leather from the skin. Leather is very useful on its own and will be discussed in a later chapter. So, now we know how to hunt, but who would be a good hunter? Important skills for a hunter are ambushing, wrestling, marks dwarf and the hammer skill. Some of these may sound weird, but make perfect sense once you understand it. Before a hunter tries to kill an animal, it tries to sneak as close as possible to it with the ambush skill. A higher ambush skill will cause the hunter to be closer to his target, making it easier to hit. Having a high marks dwarf or crossbow skill will increase the accuracy and fire rate with crossbows. Wrestling and the hammer skill may look odd, but let me explain. If a hunter doesn't have any ammo left or gets attacked by an animal, they will engage in melee combat. Crossbows count as hammer weapons when smashing skulls, so having a bit more experience with them is always useful. Wrestling is used for some of the jaw grips some animals may have. If a hunter has a high wrestling skill, it's a lot easier for him to break free from these kind of grips. Hunting with multiple hunters will be beneficial against larger foes, but do keep in mind that each one needs a crossbow, a quiver, and ammo. My last tip is to be careful not to hunt for too long, since your dwarves can cause the extinction of most wildlife if left uncontrolled. Try to hunt in short periods or when food is running low. The last method I want to discuss is breeding. Breeding in Dwarf Fortress is just something that happens. You can promote it, but you can't really force it. If a male and female animal of the same species are next to each other, there's a chance they will breed, but there are a couple of ways that this can be blocked. One way of this happening is if you have too many adult animals. If you go over 50 animals of the same group, they will also stop breeding and will only continue if one dies or is butchered. Having too many children of the same group causes the same thing. If 75% of a group of animals is juvenile, they will stop breeding until someone has grown up. The last reason is that they are simply not interested. Some animals are homosexual or otherwise not interested in reproducing. This happens in about 5% of the animals. If you want to prevent breeding yourself, there are a couple of ways of doing this. You can do this either by gelding the males, separating female and male animals, or caging females since they can breed in a cage. Caging male animals will not prevent them from breeding as long as females can reach the cage. The age to mature depends on the animal itself, but most animals are adults in 1 year. You will also get a little notification of this happening in case you need to do some housekeeping. The other side of the breeding in Dwarf Fortress is for the egg-laying creatures like chickens and geese. It's a bit harder to breed these fellas since you need to fertilize the eggs, which in some cases is a bit hard to do when dwarves keep eating them. To start breeding them, we will have to put down some nest boxes. You can create these at a cross-dwarf shop for 1 wood. Creatures that lay eggs won't lay any eggs until they are able to reach a nest box. Egg-laying animals drop off the eggs in a nest box, where a male partner will then fertilize them. For the eggs to be able to hatch, they must stay in a nest box without being touched by any other animal. You can either do this by locking the nest boxes behind a door, or excluding eggs from your stockpiles. The time of incubating is still very much debated on the Dwarf Fortress forums. Some people say it depends on the size of the eggs, others say it doesn't, but for most eggs it should be around 3 in-game months. Eggs are a great resource of food early on, so you don't need to focus on breeding them since they are more valuable as food at the start than as potential offspring. Once you start gaining more dwarfs, you could try to fertilize some to increase your egg industry. Some animals I would recommend for breeding are ducks, since they lay the second most eggs of any domestic bird. Another great egg-laying creature to breed, but may be a bit harder to get your hands on, are cave crocodiles. They can be trained into valuable pets and either butchered for a great amount of returns or kept as livestock. For some normal animals to breed, I would suggest pigs, since they don't need any grazing and will give you milk and bacon to feed your dwarves with. Breeding is something that has to be built up. Once you get some more adults that are able to breed, your egg and meat production will start booming soon enough. Once you have enough adults, you can start butchering some of them for their produce, but be careful to always keep a male and female variant. Butchering animals is done in the unit screen under the Pets and Livestock tab. Pressing on the little knife will allow a butcher to slaughter the animals in a butcher shop. Now let's talk about ways to produce food that you can control. At least kind of control. Farming is one of the most steadiest way of getting food. Not necessarily food we want for eating, but more for brewing alcohol. Since all dwarves are alcoholics, we want a steady supply of booze. To start farming, we need a couple of things. To begin with, we should make a farm plot. Farm plots are places where dwarves will take soil or clay ground and prepare them for planting seeds. Farm plots need to be built on any kind of sand, soil or clay. Most beginner-friendly embark spots should have some layers of soil, so creating a farm here should not be a problem. If you're lacking the soil, there are a couple of options we have to fix this. Either we make our own soil by running water over stone floors and letting that dry. This leaves behind mud, which we then can use to farm on. Or the other way is that we dig deep enough to find a cavern with cavern floor soil. The soil in the caverns is a lot more fertile, but is also a lot more dangerous to get to for your dwarves. Neither of these options are necessarily easy to begin with, so I would suggest if you're just starting out, to always make sure that there are some soil layers in the map. Once we have a farm plot, we will be needing seeds. The most important seeds are plump helmet spawns and pigtail seeds. Plump helmets can be grown to create the dwarf's favorite drink, dwarven wine. You can also cook meals with these, but I would prevent that from happening since they are better used for booze making. Pigtails are used for making dwarven ale, their second favorite drink, but most importantly is also used for making thread. Pigtail thread is one of the first kinds of thread that you are able to make, so stocking up on this early will be good for your hospital in the future. Both of these are underground grown plants, but we also have the option of farming above ground. Here we can grow more commonly known plants like blueberries, cucumbers, onions, normal kind of stuff, but this does come with some caveats. First off, dwarves don't really start with seeds for above ground farming. These either need to be gathered around the map or traded for. I would suggest starting your above ground farm a little bit later than your underground farm. The second issue is that above ground farming has the potential of being more dangerous than underground farming, since it's harder to defend. With that danger though, also comes extra rewards, since a lot of fruits are grown above ground and they are used to create different kinds of alcohol, which is great since dwarves can grow stale of drinking the same kind of alcohol the year around. Except for wine. They can never have enough wine for some reason. So now that we know what seeds we need and where to put them, we can start putting down a farm. I would recommend for your first farm to not make it bigger than a 3x3 area. We start small since a young fortress is unable to use farm tiles to their fullest potential. I would recommend for your first farm to not make it bigger than a 3x3 area. We start small since a young fortress is unable to use farm tiles to their fullest potential. Once we have more farmers, we can extend this, but remember that a fully optimized 3x3 farm can provide drinks for 100 dwarves, so take your time expanding it. Once you have placed down the farm, we need to select what we want to grow each year. I would recommend to start your first farm with all seasons set to plump helmets, since we want to make sure that we have enough drinks for everyone. All the above ground crops and plump helmets aren't bound to seasons and can be grown all year round. Other underground plants do require a specific season to be grown in, so keep this in mind. Another way of getting food or fruits for brewing is gathering plants. This can either be done by manually selecting an area with the tool at the bottom of the screen, or by creating a gathering zone near trees and bushes. Selecting an area with the tool will only gather from shrubs, while making use of the gathering zone will also gather fallen fruits off the ground and from the trees with step ladders. Step ladders can be produced at a carpenter shop. If you want to make use of the gathering zone, make sure some dwarves can do the plant gathering job. I would recommend placing your gathering zone under as many trees as possible to have the most benefit from this. In the new UI, you are able to select which jobs need to be performed in the zone, but I would just leave them all inactive. Now that we've covered most ways of gaining food, we can start cooking up some delicious meals with them in the kitchen. The kitchen is used for two things: rendering fat from butchered animals to use for tallow and soap later on, and cooking meals. Cooking meals applies a quality modifier to each ingredient, which drastically increases the food's value compared to eating the ingredients separately. Cooked meals can also include multiple favorite ingredients of your dwarves, giving a better mood boost while eating them. You have three options when deciding what to cook: a easy meal, which exists out of 2 ingredients, a fine meal, which exists out of 3, and a lavish meal being made out of 4 ingredients. The more ingredients a meal has, the more chance it will have to being a favorite of your dwarves. For example, if they would make a meal that uses plump helmets and carrots, both dwarves who love carrots and dwarves who love plump helmets will benefit from this one meal. I would recommend starting with a kitchen once you have set up your farms and either have fishing or hunting going. Some things to note about a kitchen are that cooking food will deter rot and will not prevent it. Cooking plants will destroy their seeds, brewing will not. This is why we prevent cooking plump helmets through the labor screen under the kitchen. Now, you don't want to keep micromanaging your drinks and food, so this is where the manager comes in. We can use the manager to automatically create tasks when we are running low on stocks. We can do this by going to the order screen by pressing O and creating an order to brew drinks. We set the conditions so that it will start producing once we are below a certain amount. There's a lot of customizing possible here, so definitely take your time to set up the orders. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe for more Dwarf Fortress content.